husband to mind his feet, man. We like it. We like we drinking right up. We like it. We like we setting non-stop.
And welcome back. We are now joined by head of the Tobago Business Chamber, Martin George, to get his outlook for the new year. The new fares for domestic travel announced in the October 2022 budget went into effect on Sunday for both the air bridge and sea bridge. Complaints were raised by some travelers questioning the timing of the increase. President of the Tobago Business Chamber, Martin George, well, as we said, he's now joining us via Zoom. Mr. George, this is a major development concerning the sea bridge, and also I understand that travelers are very concerned. They are upset.
Yeah, hi, good morning to you, Marlon, and Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year, Trinidad and Tobago. Although it's not quite so happy a new year for some of the travelers who have to face this fare increase. And what is of particular concern to me, Marlon, is the fact that they've also removed the free sailing on the ferry for pensioners. And they are now charging them $25 one way to travel. So $50 for a round trip. Now, it may not seem much, but the point is for persons on a limited budget and for persons who at least had that luxury of being able to, you've worked all your life, you've contributed to the nation, you are now in your retirement, living on your pension. You had the ability to just go on the ferry, take a trip to Tobago, come back, that kind of thing, without having to pay a fare. You ask yourself, the $25 the government is collecting from each of these pensioners, is that really going to make any significant difference to the bottom line of the Port Authority or the Inter-Island Ferry Service? What really is the merit in punishing pensioners by telling them they have to pay this fare? Sometimes you have to act with sense and sensibility when you are doing these things. And really and truly, Marlon, I see absolutely no justification for that. There's also the question of the increase in the air bridge fare by $100. Now, the thing is, so it's now $400 for a round trip. But the thing is, if at all you have to change your date or your flight time, you pay an additional $50 penalty each way. So the thing is, you're looking now at the possibility of $500 being your fare that you have to pay now in order to make this trip. And again, we are saying that, look, this is not acceptable. And particularly for Tobagonians, if it is that somebody's just going for leisure, or to have fun or a vacation, then that's different. But the fact of the matter is, you sometimes have many circumstances where Tobagonians have to come down to Trinidad for emergencies, for health reasons. You have to go to the hospital, you have to go for medical tests or treatment. There's lots of medical services that are not offered in Tobago at all. So you don't have a choice. There are lots of government departments that don't function in Tobago. So you have to come to Trinidad to get things done. You're looking at the question of necessity as opposed to, persons who are just choosing to travel for leisure. And I have suggested repeatedly, Marlon, that Caribbean Airlines ought to be a little more creative and innovative. All they need to do is introduce maybe a 2-tiered or 3-tiered fare system. So basically, you start off by saying, look, okay, if you are a business traveler or somebody who you want to travel immediately, your fare is $600 round trip. All right, so therefore, you come up to the airport, all right, you're willing to pay the $600, okay, good, on the next flight, we put you on. Then you have, for instance, you say, all right, you want to introduce maybe a $400 fare thereafter to say, well, okay, all right, if it is that you are, a regular traveler, you have your normal booking, all right, then you pay the $400 fare. Then you should have your $300 fare where you could say, look, for anyone who has an ID with a Tobago address, in other words, if you can show that you are residing in Tobago, because we understand that you may have at times to come down for necessity, a need as opposed to a want, then you will pay the $300 fare. And that way, you will now be able to, you are catering for the different needs of the public, and therefore you can satisfy your desire for increased prices by persons who will willingly pay the $600 fare. And you also now are showing some sort of maturity and understanding of the fact that there are many Tobagonians who need to come down for business or health reasons, or
Mr. George,
for an interview or for any other purpose.
How is this going to impact, let's say, the prices of food and other commodities in Tobago?
Well, I mean, once your cost of transport goes up, whether by air or by sea, then of course, Marlon, we know that there's always a knock-on effect. There's also the question of the proposed electricity rates, which we have spoken out against also, because we think that, first of all, the timing of it, is most inopportune at this moment. And then, of course, the extent of the increases that are proposed for the electricity rate increase. I mean, we have said that they certainly are not going to be something that the ordinary citizen is able to bear at this point. And in particular, Marlon, for Tobago, we have called out TNTech, where we have said that, look, TNTech needs to get its act together, because you may not be aware of it, Marlon, but the fact of the matter is that every Tobagonian experiences power outages, blackouts, brownouts, power surges, power dips on a regular basis. That's a norm. That's a norm of life in Tobago. And as a result, your air conditioners get damaged, your fridges, sometimes if you have other electrical appliances, your television, your stereo set could get damaged. And the point is, there's often very little or no compensation offered by TNTech for these things. So, I mean, before you even consider the question of a rate increase, we are saying that certainly in relation to Tobago, get your act together in terms of a proper supply of electricity that is reliable without causing damage to, people's appliances.
Mr. George, what is the general outlook in your view as it relates to Tobago? Do you see blue skies ahead, or do you see some dark clouds ahead?
Well, the point is, Marlon, I mean, even if there are dark clouds, we always look for the silver lining, on the cloud. So, I mean, we are always, optimistic in our outlook in terms of, hoping that 2023 will be better. We never, approach things with pessimism. We are hoping that, for instance, the boost that was given by the Tobago Carnival in October last year, we're hoping that it will be planned and become even bigger and better this year. We are hoping also for the post-Carnival, post-Trinidad Carnival, boost where lots of people come across to Tobago for relaxation. In fact, we are encouraging and we have advocated for the THA to try to extend that and basically say that, look, there really isn't going to be any great amount of carnival activity in Tobago during the traditional carnival period. So you promote Tobago as the getaway, the quiet retreat where you can relax and enjoy yourself, where you can encourage Boy Scouts, Girl Guides groups, and persons who want to come out for a camp, or church groups who want to just get away from the hustle and bustle of Trinidad Carnival. They should start promoting Tobago as the anti-carnival, so to speak, so that it's the alternative to the carnival in Trinidad, where you now have a sanctuary of, peace and relaxation. So I think that, we need to be creative in that sense and, understand that there's no point trying to compete with Trinidad's carnival at the same time.
Mr. George, I know that last year there was a small increase in crime in Tobago. I don't know if you would have read the Trinidad Express today. Over the past few days, the Prime Minister was speaking about a national discourse on crime. The Express would have interviewed Mr. Reginald Dumas, who is saying it's too late now. Do you have a view on this at all, this national discourse on crime?
Well, the thing is, I mean, we are always willing to have discussions, but what I am not hearing from the Prime Minister or the Prime Minister's office is what's the agenda? What's the purpose? What's going to be the effect of these discussions? Is it going to be another talk shop? We have had so many of these, consultations and so many of these fora where you come and you discuss lofty ideas and there's little or no implementation or follow through, little or no action items. So, while of course, one has to show the greatest of deference if the Prime Minister says, yes, he's willing to have discussions. And of course, we have no difficulty with that. I would like to have some more clarity as to how these discussions are going to solve the crime problem, because there's no use talking about the problem if we are not going to implement things to solve it. And it can't be that the government is now looking for solutions from the business community or from the general public, because we have had so many crime plans, and we've had Anaconda, we've had all these other great lofty ideas, Israeli spy equipment, and you name it, the blimp, if you understand me. So it can't be for a shortage of ideas or suggestions, and it can't be that the government is now coming to the public to say, well, listen, what is the solution? If you follow me.
Yes.
So, I am asking the question as to what's the purpose and the agenda for these talks, and how are they going to solve the crime problem? Because if they are not going to present a solution, and if they are going to merely end up being just another talk shop, then I'm not sure as to the utility or value of any such discussion.
Mr. George, we just have a few minutes
very
again.
Respectfully and deferentially.
We just have a few minutes again, but in the past you have been quite vociferous with your statements concerning the post of police commissioner, the police service commission, the police service. We are entering, or we are in 2023, and you have a situation where we still have to appoint a permanent holder to the post of police commissioner.
Yes, all right. Although I would prefer to use the gentler and softer word to say that I've been very vocal, yes, as opposed to vociferous. But the fact of the matter is that, yes, we are still mired in this quagmire whereby you have this convoluted process for appointing a commissioner. As I have indicated, Marlon, in Trinidad and Tobago, it's easier to appoint a president, it's easier to appoint a prime minister, it's easier to appoint a chief justice than it is to appoint a police commissioner. And we need to change that. There's absolutely no need to make this the most convoluted process of all. And then you still come back to a question of essentially having it just as it used to be, where you had the prime ministerial veto. And that's basically what we've come back to. Because in the circumstance where you have the majority party in the House of Representatives having the say, then basically it comes back to a question of who the prime minister wants, who his party wants, whoever is in charge of the government, whoever they want. So why are we going through this elaborate charade when you have a scenario where the government essentially can, jettison whoever you put as your number one choice, jettison whoever you put as your number two choice until they reach to whoever they want. If you recall, that's exactly how former Commissioner Gary Griffith got the job. Right? The government rejected the first choice of the Police Service Commission. They rejected the second choice. They rejected the third choice until they got to Mr. Gary Griffith. So therefore, you ask yourself, why do we engage in these shenanigans, when you know that at the end of the day, it comes down to a question of who the government wants?
Mm-hmm. Mr. George, thank you very much for speaking with us this morning.
The case may be.
Yeah? Always vociferous views, you know.
Vocal views, vocal views.
Thank you very much for speaking with me this morning, sir. Thank you very much. We will speak again. Thank you.
Indeed. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Let's now head to a traffic update via traffictt.com. We're heading to Scarborough. Sleepy Scarborough in the vicinity of the Port Mall. A good morning for a nice leisurely walk, eh? We're coming back.
The rum, little gin, that we drop in the spits.